Didn't get to pick up James Wood before your league mates did? Well, this is why you have to stash those big name prospects before it's too late. I'm going to give you a few new names of some prospects you can put on your bench, hopefully in an NA spot or somewhere on your fantasy roster now, and get ahead of the game before your league mates find out. And I think it's appropriate we start with Wood's teammate, or maybe soon to be future teammate, and that is Dylan Cruz, another stud outfielder for the Nationals. Cruz is another big-name prospect in the outfield for the Nats. Now, obviously, Wood got the call first, but maybe this is promising because Cruz might not be too far behind. Now, they are not exactly the same type of player. Wood, obviously, a more physically imposing, got that pure, raw power and the speed. Cruz is more of a hit tool guy. He does have power and a little bit of speed, too. He's stolen some bases in the minors. Not exactly the same, but in the end, they could both wind up being fantasy stars for years. Now, Wood did get the call first because he's also come along a little bit quicker than Cruz. So Dylan Cruz, of course, had a very decorated college career. Don't need to get into all that. You probably know out of LSU. I mean, this guy just raked up awards and tons of hits. But in the minors, it was a little bit slower for him. I mean, he did crush in single A, but then once he got bumped up to double A last year, a little bit slower for him. He, in fact, struggled at first. And then this year at Double-A, he was doing just fine, hitting .274, 5 home runs, 38 RBIs, and 186 at-bats. So he did get the call just a couple of weeks ago and moved up to Triple-A. And again, he's done fine, but nothing, lights out here, nothing that makes it seem like he's major league ready right here, right now. Hitting .259, 2 home runs, and 7 RBIs in his first 12 games at the Triple-A level. So no guarantee that he's going to be joining Wood soon, but look, it might not be that far off. You think about it, the Nats are finally giving Wood a chance, and Cruz is probably going to see time this season. Will it be right after the All-Star break? Will it be September? Can't say for sure. But look, Jesse Winker has been serviceable. He's not a long-term solution there either. They've got a bunch of different guys. They're mixing and matching. DH would be a perfect spot for Cruz to come in and play. And look, there's no guarantee that James Wood is up for the long term. He could struggle if he strikes out too much, and maybe Cruz replaces him. Either way, this is the type of bat you want to get a hold of ahead of time. Another high-end hitting prospect that might not be in the majors just yet, but when he does arrive, Brooks Lee is a name to know for sure. Lee is the Twins' number 2 overall prospect. He's been doing well for the St. Paul Saints at AAA. He got off to a slow start because of injury. In fact, terrible timing with the Royce Lewis injury in the very first week of the Major League season. Who knows, maybe we would have seen Lee up earlier if he himself didn't miss, over a month, I think, with some back issues. Since coming back, though, 90 plate appearances at AAA, hitting .333, 6 home runs, and 18 RBIs. Now, Lee does have legit power, a little bit of speed, and he can kind of do it all. Lee is actually a shortstop, but it seems like he might be somebody who does wind up getting transitioned to third base at some point. And then you look at the Twins, not only with Royce Lewis playing, though he's mostly DHing, Jose Miranda now all of a sudden is on fire. There's not a logical spot for him. You've got to wonder if he eventually does get tried out at second base. That would make sense because somebody who is naturally a shortstop should be able to play second easily. They kind of have this rotation right now in the Twins. Willie Castro, really more of a utility guy, but he's seen a lot of time there. Austin Martin, the former second baseman, now a center fielder, plays there once in a while. Kyle Farmer, again, just a bench utility type of guy. It would be nice to have the prospect Lee kind of settle in there. We'll see if that happens. Again, he might need a little bit more time because he, like I said, was delayed this season because of injury, but he's going to probably force his way up to the Major League roster pretty soon. A pitcher who's already forced his way up to the bigs is Michael Mercado of the Phillies. Now, this is not a name that you probably are familiar with unless you're really deep into prospects or deep into Phillies fandom. Like, you probably know about guys like Andrew Painter, Mick Abel. Mercado barely makes the top 30 prospects list for this organization. But the reason he's getting called up here to take that number 5 spot in the rotation is because he's got some experience at AAA. He's 25 years old, looks to be pro ready. He's been pretty good so far this year in 47 innings at the AAA level, a 1.71 ERA and 114 whip. Now, as far as what ranking he has on the organization's prospect list, that really shouldn't matter, right? If a guy is ready, he's ready. The issue here is he going to be able to control the ball? Because walks have been the one thing that had been kind of a blemish on his resume. He's managed to keep his whip pretty low. He avoids hard contact, doesn't give up a lot of home runs, but walks can be a problem for any young pitcher. And for Mercado specifically, he does that a little bit too often. So let's see what his command is like when he gets his first shot. And that's going to be this week in the majors. See how Mercado does. Now, I'm not going to necessarily rush out to pick him up, and definitely not going to rush to put him in a lineup. I want to see how he does here, but a name worth mentioning for the time being. For what it's worth, Mercado is a former Rays draft pick and prospect until he got flipped to the Phillies last year. I mean, being a Rays pitcher isn't what it used to be, but they do know how to scout pitchers. He seems to have some success so far in the minors. It could spill over. Spencer Turnbull going to be out for several weeks, and then Taijuan Walker still on the shelf, so Mercado will get at least a couple of turns in the Phillies rotation. Another kind of under-the-radar prospect who already got the call is Jose Tena of the Cleveland Guardians. Cleveland's been making some moves lately. Gavin Williams, finally healthy, got brought up. Tristan McKenzie sent down, kind of surprisingly. And then kind of lost in all the hype of that Jonkinson Noel call-up from a week ago. On that very same day, they also brought Tena up. Now, this is a polar opposite of Jonkinson Noel because Tena is a light-hitting infielder, not a massive power-hitting corner/outfielder. I'll just say right now also, not only do you not need to rush out to pick him up necessarily, you don't have to really do anything with him even in a Dynasty League. This is just keep an eye out to see if something happens here. Tena, not a high-end prospect necessarily with the bat, but he can hit for average. The issue here is playing time because, he's got a shot because Brian Rocchio is hitting .210, has not really done much. This is a similar type of player, not a lot of power, some speed, but not necessarily a base stealer. But they haven't really given him much of a chance since being called up about a week ago, only started once so far. He did get a cup of coffee last year, and Tena went 7 for 31, about 226 average, no home runs, no steals. So, again, this is somebody I feel obligated to mention so you can keep an eye out to see if he starts to get, at the very least, at-bats. And then with those at-bats, if he starts to get hits. Cleveland is a good team. They will be loyal to a player once he produces. I wouldn't be surprised if he's just here to fill a roster spot for a while and then get optioned back. On the other hand, when we see Jacob Wilson for Oakland debut, he could be there to stay. The question with Wilson isn't if he's going to join the club, it's when. He's 22 years old. There's no compelling reason for Oakland to bring up all their high-end prospects, but there's no reason not to. Come on. It's open tryouts there for Oakland these days, and they will be sellers for sure before the deadline. So maybe Wilson, their number one overall prospect and a very hot-hitting shortstop, is going to force his way up. Now, Wilson also has very limited experience as far as the minors because of injuries. This year, he was just activated, in fact, off the IL. Over a month, he missed. So he's only got 47 at-bats under his belt at AAA. Well, with those 47 at-bats, he's hitting .447. And likewise, last year, you can say, only had 88 at-bats at the AA level, but in those 88 at-bats, he hit .455. It's safe to say this guy knows how to get on base. Batting average is the appeal here. Now, with that said, not a lot of power, and this isn't really just he hasn't grown into his power yet kind of thing. Just not really sure how much power is in that bat. But look, if the guy can hit over 300, you've got to have some interest in him. I have a very strong suspicion that after the All-Star break, we will see Wilson with the club, and I wouldn't be surprised if he just sticks there. And then a little bonus pick here. This will be your non-prospect, prospect type of pick. Parker Meadows was one of the more interesting offensive prospects for the Tigers a year ago. Get a little bit of run last year. It seemed like he might be a sleeper this year with a chance to not only be an everyday player, but also lead off for the Tigers. It didn't work out nearly that way. There's rough and then there's Parker Meadows bad. In fact, across 73 at-bats this year with the Tigers, most of them in April, he hit .096. Needless to say, he was sent down, hasn't been brought back up. Look, he's faring pretty well so far in the minors, hitting .290. He's showing off the power and the speed he has. He has excellent speed. He definitely can steal bases. He can definitely hit you some home runs. This is a guy I really thought could go 20-20 this year. I don't know if this was just a matter of not being mentally prepared. I'm not sure why he struggled so bad out the gate. Maybe he would have turned things around eventually. The Tigers, you cannot blame them. They had to do something, just like they had to do something with Spencer Torkelson. Look, I'll be honest, other than, let's say, Riley Green, this whole offense has been a massive letdown this year. But I'm willing to give Meadows a second chance if he does get brought back up. You would think that might happen at the very least after the trade deadline. So I'm going to keep an eye on him. Yeah, I want to see him actually produce first, but I think he's capable because even last year, he only hit like 232 with the Tigers, but he wasn't nearly this bad. I think he could do much better. Hey, maybe he'll be one of those great second half surprises. Every week give you some up-and-coming prospects that you should be looking forward to. And I also talk about some disappointing veterans that you should be worried about. It's called panic players. Who are the ones you should be worried about this week? If you haven't checked it out yet, do it now.